The massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. They were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Each vessel stretched for miles, gleaming with silver and gold surfaces that seemed to shift in the sunlight. The world stopped to watch as news channels broadcast images of the alien fleet. People gathered in streets, pointing at the sky. Fear mixed with wonder as governments scrambled to respond. Within hours, a message arrived in every known human language. The Galactic Council requested a meeting. They came in peace, they said, and brought an offer of great importance. The message was formal and elegant, speaking of ancient traditions and cosmic brotherhood. Earth's leaders agreed to meet them at the Geneva Orbital Station, a rotating facility that housed the United Earth government. Ambassador Velther descended from the flagship 3 days later. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that glowed faintly. His species, the Ascendants, had ruled portions of the galaxy for thousands of years. Behind him came representatives from dozens of other alien species. Some walked on 2 legs, others floated, and a few rolled on complicated limbs. All wore robes decorated with symbols of their rank and worlds. Do-Yoon Park waited to greet them in the main conference hall. He was a career diplomat, chosen for his calm manner and sharp mind. He wore a simple black suit, standing straight as the aliens filed into the room. The contrast was striking. The aliens looked like gods from ancient paintings, while Do-Yoon looked like a man heading to an office. The presentation began immediately. Velther spoke with a voice that seemed to echo from everywhere at once. He explained that the Galactic Council governed 47 species across thousands of star systems. They maintained peace, shared technology, and protected members from threats. For 3 days, different council members took turns describing their great civilization. They showed videos of beautiful cities on distant planets, massive trade ships carrying goods between stars, and peaceful aliens living together in harmony. On the 4th day, Velther finally revealed the true purpose of their visit. Humanity was being invited to join the Galactic Council. The aliens spoke as if this was the greatest honor imaginable. Velther smiled, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. He explained that most species waited centuries before receiving such an invitation. Humanity was being offered a shortcut to the stars. But then came the conditions. Do-Hyun listened carefully as Velther outlined the requirements. Humanity would need to share all research on faster-than-light travel. Earth would submit to genetic standards enforced by Council medical officers. Resources would be extracted according to quotas set by Council economists. Most importantly, humanity would acknowledge the Council's supreme authority in all matters of galactic importance. Member species voted on issues, Velther explained, but older species held more votes based on their wisdom and experience. Humanity would start with a junior membership, earning more influence over several centuries of loyal service. Do-Yoon asked questions throughout the week. He remained polite, taking notes and requesting clarification on technical points. How many votes would humanity receive? 1 compared to the Ascendants' 20. Could humanity refuse a council directive? Only by leaving the council entirely. What happened to species that rejected membership? Velther's smile faded slightly. Those species remained outside civilization, he said. They had no protection from pirates or hostile empires. Accidents happened in the dark spaces between stars. At the end of the 7th day, Velther expected Do-Yoon to accept immediately. Instead, Do-Yoon thanked the ambassador for the detailed presentation and requested time to consult with Earth's government. Velther seemed surprised but agreed. 1 week, he said. Surely that would be enough time for humanity to recognize such a generous offer. Do-Hyun returned to Earth that evening. The next morning, he sat in a secure conference room deep beneath Geneva with the planet's most powerful leaders. President Hyun-Woo Kang sat at the head of the table, his gray hair and lined face showing the weight of his office. General Min Jae-choi represented the Earth Defense Forces, her uniform covered in medals from the colony wars. Dr. Ji-won Nam attended via hologram from the Mars Research Station, her eyes tired from long hours in the laboratory. The debate lasted 3 days. Some argued that humanity needed the Council's protection. Others pointed out that the conditions essentially made Earth a colony. General Choi presented military analysis showing the Council protection meant human ships would be restricted to patrol routes approved by alien commanders. Dr. Nam showed research indicating that surrendering FTL technology would lock humanity into inferior systems designed to keep them dependent. President Kang let everyone speak. He listened to economic advisors explain trade benefits and heard philosophers debate the value of independence versus security. Representatives from the Moon, Mars, and the Belt colonies all voiced opinions. Arguments grew heated. Coffee cups emptied and were refilled. Outside the secure room, the world waited anxiously for a decision. Finally, on the third day, President Kang called for a vote. The decision needed to be unanimous according to Earth's charter. One by one, the leaders indicated their choice. When the last hand rose, Kang nodded slowly. The vote was unanimous. Earth would reject the Council's invitation. Do-hyun received his instructions that evening. He read them twice, making sure he understood. Then he packed his bag and returned to the Geneva Orbital Station. The aliens were waiting for humanity's answer. They had no idea what was coming. In thousands of years, no species had ever said no to the Galactic Council. Do-hyun walked toward the conference hall, knowing he was about to make history. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. Earth had made its choice. The council chamber fell completely silent when Do-hyun spoke the words. "Thank you for your generous offer, but Earth must respectfully decline." His voice was calm and professional, as if he had just turned down an invitation to lunch, rather than rejecting the most powerful organization in the galaxy. Ambassador Velther stood frozen for several seconds. His pale blue skin flickered through several colors before settling back to its normal shade. Around the circular chamber, alien delegates leaned forward in their seats. Some made sounds that translation devices struggled to interpret. Others simply stared. Velther finally found his voice. "I apologize, Ambassador Park. There must be an error in translation. Would you please repeat your government's response?" Do-hyun had expected this reaction. "There is no translation error, Ambassador. Earth appreciates the Council's interest, but we choose to decline membership at this time. We prefer to maintain our independence and develop at our own pace. We hope to remain on friendly terms with all Council species as neutral neighbors." The chamber erupted. Delegates spoke over each other in dozens of languages. Translation devices overloaded, creating a chaotic mix of sounds. One alien delegate, whose species resembled an octopus made of crystalline material, actually fell out of his chair in shock. Another began what appeared to be a prayer or meditation ritual. Velther raised his hands for silence. It took several minutes for order to return. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its warm, welcoming tone. "Ambassador Park, I must inform you that in 10,000 years of Council history, no species has ever rejected our invitation. Clearly, your government does not understand the opportunity being offered." Do-hyun remained standing calmly. "We understand perfectly, Ambassador. Earth's government thanks the Council for taking the time to explain everything in such detail. That thorough explanation is precisely why we are declining. We do not wish to surrender control of our technology, resources, or future. We choose independence." Another delegate stood up. She represented the Kelton hierarchy, a species that looked vaguely reptilian with emerald scales and golden eyes. "This is insanity. You are a young species. You have been in space for barely 200 years. You need guidance. You need protection." Doan turned to face her. "We appreciate your concern. However, humanity has survived challenges before without outside assistance. We believe we can continue to do so." The debate continued for hours. Different delegates tried different approaches. Some spoke of the wonders humanity would miss. Others described the dangers lurking in unexplored space. A few tried to explain in condescending terms that young species simply did not understand galactic politics. Dahyun listened to each argument and politely maintained Earth's position. Finally, Velther took control again. His friendly mask had completely fallen away. "Let me be clear, Ambassador Park. The galaxy is not a safe place for unaligned species. Pirates prey on lone ships. Hostile empires expand into unclaimed territories. Resources become disputed. Without council protection, accidents happen. Ships disappear. Colonies go silent. It would be tragic if such misfortunes befell humanity." The threat was barely concealed. Dohyun met Velther's eyes steadily. "Thank you for the warning, Ambassador. Earth will take appropriate precautions. Our decision stands." Velther stared at him for a long moment. Then he made a gesture that his species used to indicate dismissal. "You may go, Ambassador Park. When humanity reconsiders, and you will reconsider, contact us. We may still be willing to accept your membership, though the terms might be less generous." Dohyun bowed slightly, showing respect without submission. He turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the council delegates immediately began talking among themselves. The news would spread across the galaxy within hours. Back on Earth, reactions were mixed. In Seoul, people celebrated in the streets, waving flags and cheering for independence. In New York, protesters gathered outside government buildings demanding to know why Earth had rejected protection. News channels ran constant debates. Some experts called it the bravest decision in human history. Others predicted it would lead to disaster. Captain Sunyin Lee watched the news from his quarters aboard the EDS Guardian, one of Earth's newest warships. He was a military officer with 15 years of experience, including 3 years fighting pirates in the outer colonies. He did not trust the Galactic Council's promises of protection. In his experience, protection often meant control. His second officer, Lieutenant Yuna Shin, knocked on his door. She was young but brilliant, an engineer who had designed several of the Guardian's weapon systems. "Captain, orders just came through. The defense fleet is going to high alert. Command thinks the Council might try something." Sungyun nodded. He had expected as much. "Tell the crew to prepare for extended patrol duty. If the Council wants to test us, they'll find us ready." On Mars, Dr. Jiwon Nam barely noticed the political chaos. She was focused on her research team's latest breakthrough. For months, they had been working on a new type of quantum drive that could potentially achieve faster-than-light travel without using the same principles as Council technology. If they succeeded, Earth would not need to surrender anything to travel between stars. Her assistant, a young researcher named Taeyang Ko, brought her coffee at 3 in the morning. "Dr. Nam, you should rest. You have been working for 20 hours straight." Jiwon waved him away. "Sleep later. Right now, we proved that Earth made the right choice." Across the galaxy, the news of Earth's rejection spread like wildfire. Most species were simply confused. A few found it amusing, joking that these humans would learn their lessons soon enough. Some, however, were intrigued. There were whispers among younger council members, species that had joined centuries ago and had been forced to accept unfavorable terms. They watched humanity's defiance with growing interest. In one distant system, a Nella merchant named Keth read the news and smiled. His species had been council members for 400 years, and they had always resented the Ascendant's dominance. Perhaps these humans were not as primitive as everyone assumed. Perhaps they understood something important. Back on the Geneva Orbital Station, Dong-Hyun sat alone in his quarters and allowed himself a moment of doubt. Had Earth made the right choice? Would his name be remembered as the diplomat who doomed humanity? He looked out at the stars and thought about his daughter, who was studying at the Lunar Academy. He wanted her to grow up free, not as a subject of some distant alien government. No, Earth had made the right choice. Now, they just had to survive it. The embargo began exactly 1 week after Earth's rejection. Council ships stopped accepting human cargo. Space stations that served as trading hubs between species suddenly denied docking permission to vessels with Earth registration. Human merchants found their goods unwelcome at alien markets. The message was clear without being openly hostile. Join the Council or remain isolated. President Hyun-Woo Kang addressed the United Earth government from his office in Geneva. The Council believes they can pressure us into changing our decision. They believe cutting off trade will make us desperate. They are wrong. Earth has survived worse than an alien trade embargo. We will adapt. Adaptation came quickly. Human colonies that had been trading with alien partners redirected their resources to Earth markets. The lunar manufacturing facilities increased production. Mars sent additional food shipments. The Beltmyers focused on extracting materials that Earth needed most. Within 2 months, the initial panic had settled into determination, but the Council was not finished testing humanity's resolve. Pirates began targeting human ships with increasing frequency. The attacks started small, a mining vessel here, a transport there. Then they grew bolder. A colony ship carrying 5,000 settlers to a new world was ambushed near the Orion relay station. The ship was called the New Horizon, and Captain Ji-ho Kwon commanded its small escort of 3 defense corvettes. He was a veteran of the colony wars, a conflict between Earth settlements that had taught humanity brutal lessons about space combat. When his sensors picked up 6 pirate vessels closing in, he immediately knew something was wrong. "These are not normal pirates," his tactical officer said, studying the sensor data. "Their ships are too new, too well armed." Someone supplied them with military-grade weapons. Ji-ho did not need to guess who that someone might be. "All ships, Battle Formation Delta, protect the New Horizon at all costs." The pirates expected an easy victory. Human ships were smaller and supposedly less advanced. But Ji-ho and his crews had something the pirates did not expect. Desperation and creativity made a dangerous combination. The human corvettes split up, using the New Horizon itself as a shield. They fired missiles on erratic paths, making them hard to intercept. When one pirate ship got too close, a human corvette rammed it at full speed. The crew had already evacuated in escape pods, turning their ship into a guided missile. 3 pirate vessels were destroyed. 2 more were damaged and fled. The last one surrendered when Ji-ho's remaining corvette targeted its engines. The New Horizon and most of its passengers survived. When news of the battle reached Earth, Ji-ho became a hero overnight. But the military commanders saw something more important in the battle reports. Admiral Tae-Yong-han called an emergency meeting at Defense Command in Geneva. She was a short woman with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, and her stern expression had earned her the nickname Iron Lady. She stood before a room full of officers and spoke bluntly. "The Council is testing us. These pirate attacks are not random. We have intercepted communications that prove Council species are supplying the pirates with weapons and intelligence. They want to see how we respond. They want us to get scared and beg for their protection." A younger officer raised his hand. "Admiral, what is our response?" Admiral Han smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "We show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Lieutenant Soman Beek, present your tactical analysis." Soman was a rising star in military intelligence. She had been studying pirate operations for months. She brought up a holographic map showing known pirate bases and routes. The pirates operate from 3 main locations in unclaimed space. If we strike all 3 simultaneously, we can cripple their operations for months. The plan was approved within hours. 3 task forces launched from Earth the next morning. The operation was commanded by Admiral Mingio, a tactical genius who had written a manual on small unit combat. Her ships arrived at the first pirate base while most of the pirates were still sleeping. The battle lasted 20 minutes. Human ships used tactics that no pirate expected. They attacked from multiple angles, used asteroids for cover, and deployed experimental weapons that Dr. Jiwan Nam's team had recently developed. The quantum disruption missiles disabled pirate shields, and the kinetic railguns tore through hulls designed to withstand energy weapons. All 3 pirate bases were destroyed. Hundreds of pirates were captured. The galaxy watched in shock as footage of the battle spread through alien networks. Humans were not supposed to be this effective in combat. They were a young species, barely 2 centuries in space. But their military had just executed a perfectly coordinated strike across 3 star systems. On the Council homeworld, Ambassador Velther watched the battle footage with growing concern. He had been confident that pressure and pirate attacks would force Earth to reconsider. Instead, humanity had demonstrated military capability that exceeded Council estimates. Worse, they had shown tactical creativity that made them unpredictable and dangerous. Back on Mars, Dr. Jiwan Nam celebrated with her research team. The quantum disruption missiles had worked perfectly in actual combat, but she was already working on the next breakthrough. Her team had finally cracked the mathematics behind stable quantum drive fields. If the prototype worked, Earth would have faster-than-light travel that was superior to anything the Council possessed. She called President Kang with the news. "Sir, we are ready to begin testing. If successful, we can have FTL-capable ships within 6 months." Kang allowed himself a rare smile. "Proceed, Doctor. Show them that Earth does not need their technology." Meanwhile, Intelligence Officer Nari Choi was busy in her office deep beneath Seoul. She specialized in electronic surveillance and had been monitoring Council communications since the embargo began. What she discovered troubled her. The Council leadership was divided. Some wanted to escalate pressure on Earth. Others were beginning to doubt the wisdom of this confrontation. She sent her report directly to President Kang. "Sir, the Council is not as unified as they appear. We have an opportunity here if we play our cards correctly." In Council space, cracks were indeed forming. Several younger species had watched humanity's defiance with interest. They remembered being forced to accept unfavorable terms when they joined. They remembered surrendering technology and resources. Now they saw an alternative. Earth had said no and survived. Earth had said no and thrived. Another trade minister named Keth began making quiet inquiries. He contacted human merchant ships through unofficial channels, offering to trade despite the embargo. Other species noticed and began asking questions. If the Nella could trade with humans without permission, why couldn't they? The Galactic Council had wanted to make an example of Earth. Instead, Earth was becoming an example of something entirely different. Resistance was possible. Independence was possible. The galaxy's established order was beginning to crack, and humanity had barely started fighting. Captain Sung-in Lee stood on the bridge of the Guardian, reading reports of the successful pirate base raids. His first officer approached with new orders. "Captain, Command wants us to establish a patrol route along the outer colonies. They expect the Council might try something more direct." Sung-in nodded. "Set course immediately, and make sure the crew knows we are ready for anything. If the Council wants a real fight, they will get one. The test of humanity's resolve was far from over. But Earth had already proven something important. They were not victims waiting for protection. They were survivors who would fight for their freedom. The Nella Confederation had been members of the Galactic Council for 400 years. In that time, they had paid countless fees, followed endless regulations, and watched as elder species made decisions that benefited themselves at younger members' expense. Trade Minister Keth remembered every slight, every unfair ruling. Every time his people's voice had been ignored. Now, he sat in his private office, aboard a trading station at the edge of council space, watching news broadcasts about humanity. These strange bipeds had done what no species had dared in millennia. They had said no, and they were still standing. Keth made a decision that would change everything. He composed a message using an encrypted channel that council monitors would not detect. The message went to a human merchant captain named Yoonji Han, whose ship had been turned away from council ports 3 times in the past month. The message was simple. I have goods to trade. Meet me at coordinates attached. Come alone. Yoonji was suspicious when she received the message. Pirates often use tricks like this to lure victims into ambushes. But her ship needed supplies, and official channels were closed. She decided to risk it. She brought extra security and made sure her weapons were ready. The meeting place was an asteroid field in neutral space. Keth's ship was there waiting, a sleek vessel marked with Neller symbols. When Yoonji's ship approached, Keth broadcast on open channels. I come to trade, not fight. I have medicine and rare metals. You have human technology and entertainment that my people desire. The trade took 3 hours. Both sides were nervous, expecting council enforcement to arrive any moment. But nothing happened. They completed the transaction, and both ships departed richer than they had arrived. More importantly, a precedent had been set. Word spread quickly through underground channels. If the Nella could trade with humans, others could too. Within weeks, a dozen species were conducting secret trades with Earth merchants. The Council's embargo was failing, and everyone knew it. On Earth, Ambassador Hound Lee was busy exploiting these cracks in Council unity. She was a young diplomat, only 35 years old, but she had a gift for reading people regardless of their species. She began reaching out to representatives from younger Council members, always in unofficial settings where no one would notice. Her message was carefully crafted. Earth did not want to destroy the Council. Earth simply wanted independence. Was that not something every species valued? Did the junior members truly enjoy following orders from species who had joined thousands of years ago? What if there was another way? The conversations were always brief and carefully worded. Hound never pushed too hard. She planted seeds and let them grow. And grow they did. Delegates began meeting in private. They discussed their shared frustrations. Some had been council members for centuries, but still held minimal voting power. Others resented how elder species controlled all the profitable trade routes. Ambassador Velther noticed the changing mood, but misunderstood its cause. He believed council members were simply concerned about humanity's military capabilities. He decided that a show of force would settle everyone's nerves. A demonstration of council power would remind humanity of their place and reassure members that the council remained supreme. He proposed sending a military task force to Earth's solar system. Not to attack, he insisted, simply to demonstrate council strength. A reminder that defiance had consequences. Most council leadership agreed. A few younger members voted against it, but they were outnumbered as always. Fleet Commander Zavik was chosen to lead the demonstration. He was an experienced officer from the warrior species known as the Krell, beings who stood 8 feet tall and were covered in armored plates. He took pride in his military record and saw this assignment as easy duty. Show up, look intimidating, watch the humans panic. he assembled a force of 36 warships, including 3 heavy dreadnoughts that each carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The fleet departed from Council space with full ceremony, broadcast across all member worlds. The message was clear. This is what happens to those who reject the Council. The journey to Earth system took 3 days using Council FTL drives. During that time, Zavok studied intelligence reports about human military capability. He was not impressed. Their ships were small and their weapons seemed primitive. The recent pirate battles had been lucky victories against disorganized criminals. Nothing more. His confidence lasted until his fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of Earth's solar system. His sensors immediately lit up with contacts. The entire Earth defense fleet was there waiting in formation. They had known exactly when and where his fleet would arrive. Admiral Mingio commanded the human fleet from her flagship, the Ed's Defiant. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been preparing for this moment since intelligence predicted the Council would try a show of force. Her ships were outnumbered 3-1, but they were ready. She opened a communication channel to Zavek's flagship. Her voice was calm and professional. Council Fleet Commander, this is Admiral Minji, O of the Earth Defense Forces. You have entered human sovereign space without permission. State your intentions. Zavek appeared on her screen, his armored face showing surprise that quickly turned to anger. I am Fleet Commander Zavek. We are here to demonstrate Council military capability. You will stand down and allow us to proceed. Minji's expression did not change. I am afraid I cannot do that, Commander. You may remain at your current position, or you may leave our system. Those are your only options. The standoff began. Both fleets held formation, weapons armed but not fired. On Earth, billions of people watched the news broadcasts with held breath. This could be the moment that started a war. In Council space, member species watched with equal tension. How would this confrontation end? Aboard the Izzy Guardian, Captain Sumin Lee had his weapons locked on a Council cruiser. His finger hovered over the firing control. Lieutenant Soman Beek monitored enemy communications, listening for any sign they were preparing to attack. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut. Sir, Soman whispered. Their communications show confusion. They did not expect us to be ready. They are asking their commander for orders. Sumyun nodded slightly. Keep listening. The moment they power up weapons, we fire first. Hours passed. Neither fleet moved. Zavek tried to contact his superiors for guidance, but the distance made real-time communication impossible. He had to make a decision on his own. He looked at his tactical displays and realized something troubling. The human fleet positioning was perfect. They had defensive positions around orbital fortresses and weapon platforms that his sensors had not detected until now. If fighting started, his fleet would take heavy casualties even if they won. More importantly, he realized the humans were not afraid. They were not begging for mercy or trying to negotiate. They were simply waiting for him to make the first move, confident in their ability to fight back. This was not the response of a weak species. This was the response of people ready to die for their independence. Colonel Junho Park commanded one of the orbital defense platforms. His railgun batteries were aimed at a Council dreadnought. He had clear orders. If the Council fired first, destroy as many ships as possible before they destroyed him. He accepted this calmly. Some things were worth dying for. Finally, after 8 hours of standoff, Zavek made his decision. He would not start a war today. He opened a channel to Admiral Minji. Earth Defense Forces, we are departing. This demonstration is complete. Minji nodded once. Acknowledged, Commander. Safe travels. The Council fleet turned and activated their FTL drives. Within minutes, they were gone. On Earth, people erupted in celebration. The Council had blinked first. Humanity had stood firm, and the galaxy's most powerful military had backed down. The political consequences were immediate. If humans could face down a Council fleet, what else could they do? The news of Fleet Commander Zavek's retreat spread across the galaxy within hours. On worlds throughout Council space, species watched the footage of human ships holding their ground against superior numbers. Some saw it as a military defeat. Others saw it as something more significant. The Council's authority had been challenged, and the Council had backed down. Within a week, the first formal request arrived at Geneva. The Neller Confederation, represented by Trade Minister Keth, asked to establish neutral status similar to Earth's. They no longer wished to be bound by Council regulations. They wanted independence. The Council leadership went into emergency session. Ambassador Velther argued for immediate military action against the Neller. If one species left, others would follow. The entire system would collapse. But other delegates were hesitant. The Neller had a strong defensive fleet. Fighting them while tensions with Earth remained high seemed unwise. While the Council debated, 5 more species submitted similar requests. Then 10 more. The younger members who had suffered under unfair terms for centuries saw their chance. If humanity could stand alone, why couldn't they? The dominoes were falling faster than anyone had predicted. Ambassador Hound Lee watched the chaos from her office in Geneva with satisfaction. Her quiet conversations had planted seeds that were now bearing fruit. But she knew Earth needed to offer something more than just an example of defiance. They needed to offer an alternative. She brought her proposal to President Hyunwoo Kang late one evening. They sat in his private office, reviewing documents on holographic screens. Outside the windows, Earth glowed in the darkness of space. "Mr. President, the Council's structure is fundamentally flawed," Hound explained. "It maintains order through hierarchy and force. Elder species dominate while younger members serve. But what if we offered a different model? What if we created a coalition based on voluntary cooperation and equal partnership?" Kang leaned back in his chair, considering. "You are suggesting we form a rival to the Galactic Council?" "Not a rival, sir. An alternative. A coalition of free systems. Any species can join on equal terms. No junior memberships. No forced quotas. Members cooperate on defense and trade, but maintain sovereignty. The kind of organization humanity wanted the Council to be." Kang was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Draft a formal proposal. Make it clear we are not trying to destroy the Council. We are simply offering choice." The announcement came 2 weeks later. President Kang addressed not just Earth, but the entire galaxy through every communication channel available. Communications Officer Chae-Young Seo had worked for days to ensure the message reached every corner of known space. Kang's speech was simple and direct. Earth proposed the formation of the Coalition of Free Systems. All species were welcome to join based on equal partnership. The coalition would provide mutual defense, facilitate trade, and share technology freely. But membership was voluntary, and members retained complete sovereignty over their own worlds. No species would rule over others. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 3 days, 15 species requested information about joining. Within a week, that number reached 40. The Neller Confederation joined on day 10, becoming the first non-human member. Their decision gave the coalition legitimacy in Council space. Not everyone was supportive. Ambassador Velther denounced the coalition as a dangerous precedent that would lead to chaos. Several elder species agreed with him, but their voices were drowned out by the younger members who saw the coalition as liberation. One of those voices belonged to Councillor Ralvex, a pragmatic leader from a mid-level Council species. He had watched humanity carefully since their rejection and had concluded that they represented change that could not be stopped. He spoke before the full council assembly with words that cut through political posturing. Fellow council members, we can condemn Earth's coalition, or we can adapt to the new reality. The choice is ours, but denying reality will not change it. These humans have shown us that our system is broken. Perhaps it is time to fix it rather than fight those who point out the cracks. His speech started a fierce debate that lasted 3 days. Some delegates walked out in protest. Others called for his expulsion. But a growing number listened with open minds. By the end of the week, the council had split into 3 factions. The traditionalists who wanted to maintain the old order at any cost. The reformers who believed the council needed to change to survive. And the undecided who were waiting to see which way the wind blew. While politics raged, Dr. Jiwan Nam and her team on Mars were making history of a different kind. The quantum drive prototype had passed every test. It was time for the first manned FTL flight using purely human technology. The test ship was small, carrying only a crew of 5. Captain Bok-soo Kim commanded the mission, a former test pilot with nerves of steel. Dr. Taiyan Kao, who had worked on the drive system for 2 years, served as chief engineer. They launched from Mars on a bright morning while half the solar system watched. The destination was Alpha Centauri, humanity's nearest stellar neighbor. Using council technology, the journey would take 3 days. The quantum drive was supposed to make the trip in 6 hours. If it worked, all systems green, Taiyang reported from the engineering station. Quantum field is stable. We are ready to initiate drive. Bok-soo took a deep breath. Engage quantum drive on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The universe seemed to fold around them. Stars stretched into lines of light. Reality bent in ways that made no logical sense. Then, 6 hours and 12 minutes later, the ship dropped back into normal space. Sensors confirmed their location. Alpha Centauri. They had traveled 4 light years in 6 hours using technology the Council had said was impossible for a species as young as humanity. Bok-soo grinned at his crew. Ladies and gentlemen, Earth just changed the rules of the game. News of the quantum drive success reached Earth the same day. President Kang made another announcement. The technology would be shared freely with all coalition members. No patents. No restrictions. Any species that joined the coalition would have access to FTL travel that was faster and more efficient than Council technology. The announcement was a masterstroke. Suddenly, joining the coalition meant gaining a strategic advantage. 10 more species applied for membership within hours. 3 of them were former Council Corps members, species that had been with the organization for thousands of years. The Galactic Council's authority was crumbling faster than anyone had imagined. Ambassador Velther and the Traditionalist faction tried to hold the organization together through threats and emergency measures. But every action they took pushed more members toward the coalition. By the end of the 3rd month after Earth's initial rejection, 23 species had officially joined the coalition of free systems. Dozens more were in negotiations. The Council still existed and still held significant power, but its absolute authority was broken forever. The political reshaping of the galaxy was not peaceful. There were border disputes and trade conflicts. Some Council hardliners attempted sabotage against coalition members. But the coalition held firm, and humans proved instrumental in mediating conflicts and building trust between former rivals. Ambassador Houndley became the coalition's first Secretary General, chosen by unanimous vote of all member species. She established headquarters on a neutral station between Earth and Neller Space, symbolizing the partnership between species. On Earth, people debated whether they had made the right choice. Some worried about future conflicts with the Council. Others celebrated the freedom they had secured. President Kang addressed these concerns in his end-of-year speech. "We chose independence not because it was easy, but because it was right. We showed the galaxy that cooperation does not require domination. Partnership does not require submission. And together with our coalition allies, we will build a future based on mutual respect and shared prosperity." 6 months after the rejection that shocked the galaxy, Captain Sung-Yun Lee stood on the bridge of the Guardian preparing for a new mission. He would command the first joint human-Neller exploration expedition into uncharted space. His crew included officers from 4 different species, all working together as equals. His first officer, a Neller navigator named Keth's daughter Seon, reviewed their course. "Captain, all systems ready. The unexplored region awaits." Sung-Yun smiled. This was what humanity had fought for. Not isolation, but the freedom to forge their own alliances. Not rejection of cooperation, but refusal of servitude. They had said no to the Council's offer because it was the wrong offer. Now they were building something better. The Guardian and its sister ships activated their quantum drives and jumped into the unknown. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. The old order was fading, and a new one was rising. Humanity had not just rejected an alliance. They had offered the galaxy something better, a future of freedom and equality. And the galaxy was accepting.